Today's video is video number 1500, which is a milestone for me. Hell, I never thought I'd make it to 100, never mind 1500, and here we go. Today is a teardown of an Alarmcare. This is a personal emergency response system. Let's take a look at it. Today we're going to do a teardown on this Alarmcare unit from Alarmforce. Of course, Alarmforce is no more. They were bought out. And at work, we're swapping these units out for the new models that we support, as we no longer support these ones. This was kind of a custom piece of equipment, and what this is, for those of you that aren't familiar, this is very similar to the solution that Philips had as well for seniors. It's a senior fall detector, so they wear a pendant. And if they need help, they press a button, or if they fall, there should be a fall detector in here that detects that they've fallen and sounds an alarm. This is a speakerphone. It phones the monitoring company, and the monitoring company asks them if they're okay and dispatches an ambulance and paramedics and so forth and calls their next of kin. This unit here is defective. That's why I've got it, because I had to swap it out last week for one of the new ones that we have. So I figured before I send this thing off to be crushed down into whatever they do with old electronics, we'll take this apart and see what's in it. So these units here, plastic. It's got a status cancel button, supervision button, panic. It's all voice activated. Well, it has a speaker on it, and it's bloody loud too. I didn't get the power supply here because we're not going to turn this thing on. Well, I can power it up with the battery. How these operate is they plug into a regular landline phone, and if they detect that button press, they're going to try and dial out.
Power failure. Supervision on. Pendant 1. Low sensor battery.
So this one's got a low sensor battery in the pendant, we know that, but there was also another problem with this thing falsing.
Phone line cut.
No kidding.
Phone line cut.
Let's take this thing apart and see what's in it. Okay, that I think takes off a panel on the front that a cellular modem can go into, if I'm not mistaken. Oh yes. Yeah, you see here, there's a module that could plug in here for a cell phone, a cell module, so that it didn't require a landline phone. This is going to be the radio module for the pendant. 315, this is 315. So there's where the battery connects. Circuit board inside here. It's got a microphone. It's got the dual color LED, red and green. Microphone on the front here. Like that speaker, 10-watt speaker. Wow. Look at the size of the magnet on that thing. I bet you that thing's gonna have some half decent sound. Hey, the speaker just unplugs. Press down the two little tabs. We may have to put something on this speaker and just see how it sounds. Put some music or something through this thing. See how those little speaker sounds? I bet you this little speaker sounds pretty darn good. Because look at the size of that magnet. Okay, I was wrong. The speaker is not worth salvaging. Sounds like a mid-range tweeter speaker. It's be good for voice, but it's not good for anything other than voice because, well, there's no bass. So looking on the bottom side of the board here, here's the antenna. This is the antenna to receive the 313. Did I say it was 313? 315. 315 megahertz signal from the transmitter. This receives that signal. processes the signal and sends it off to the board itself. Let's take a look at what's on the board and what controls this thing. It's got a couple of ICs on here and they're socketed. Let's get a look at the chips themselves. If we look at the main part of the board, this is the telephone portion of it here, right? The telephone line goes in here. There's a relay so that when the unit makes an outgoing call, it seizes the phone line so that if someone's phone is off the hook, it will clear the line before making a call. Looks like we got a couple of 7809 and the 7809 and the 7805. So there's a 9-volt and a 5-volt regulator here. And this is a 317. So this is another regulator here, I believe. The audio transformer would be for the telephone system. And I'm going to go on a limb and suggest that this is probably the audio output over here. This is the speakerphone portion. There's a optocoupler on board here and some surge suppression so that any transients that came down the phone line aren't going to affect the unit itself. Let's take a look at these ICs and see what they are. Looking at the LED, it's been hand soldered, and there's some jumpers here that have been added to the board after the fact. Looks like Alarmforce developed this board in-house and probably built their own equipment. It doesn't say where it was made, but it could very well have been made in Canada. Let's just see if it says anything on the bottom as to where the unit was manufactured. I was wondering why that board looks so good. Made in Canada. Very good. Property of Alarmforce. I take it that they wanted these things back, but hey, Alarmforce is no more. And this is going back to our reverse logistics at work, so I'm not going to be taking anything off this. I'm just showing you guys what's in it, and then I'll be sending it back through our recovery channels so it can go to whatever they're planning on doing with these things, I think they're just crushing these things down and destroying them because, of course, Alarmforce no longer exists. And that's why we don't support these at work. The company I work for purchased Alarmforce, and we've replaced all the hardware with newer stuff, better equipment than what they had. This stuff was actually relatively basic stuff, basic equipment. It did the job, but there was nothing to write home about for their alarm panels and stuff. The bread box, as we used to call it, which was just basically a speaker in a box, and it was controlled wirelessly. The stuff that we use now is all Qualsys touch panels, and Android based basically. If you get a close-up of the ICs, see if I can get in closer without my camera going out of focus. Looks like we have a 16F648. This is a microcontroller made by Microchip, 4 megahertz internal oscillator. 200 nanosecond instruction executions. Says easy to program. 35 single word instructions. It's a CMOS flash based 8-bit microcontroller, and that's going to be part of the OS on it. It also has a PIC, and this is an enhanced flash microcontroller. Features a 10-bit up to 8-channel analog to digital converter. Analog comparator. It's got 2 analog comparators, programmable on-chip voltage reference, programmable input multiplex from device. I'm going to jump in here and just look at the little circuit cut there right next to the white wire, where they've obviously had to make a modification and rewire that circuit with that jumper wire. Next to that is an MT8870DE. This is a DTMF decoder. Not an encoder, but a decoder. You wonder, why would they need to have a decoder on something like this? Well, you see how it operates is when the monitoring station, so it would have a dialer on here as well that would generate the tones, but the tones could be generated probably inside one of the PICs here for programming the phone number. But when or even maybe over here, I have to look up what some of these other ICs are. But when the monitoring station is talking to the client, when they need to talk back, the microphone is on the unit so they can listen into the room. And because if there was a noisy environment, for example, if the radio is playing or the TV's blaring or something, they need to be able to talk over. So this is not a two-way speakerphone. It's not a full duplex speakerphone. It's a half duplex. And what they do is they send a tone, and it's not one of the standard. Tones that you would get on a telephone, because there's 4 additional ones, right? You've got your 0 through 9 plus your star and asterisk, but there's also an A, B, C, and D. So they hit a key which sends out a very quick beep, and that turns off the microphone and turns on the speaker so that they can talk. So when they come online, you'll hear a quick burst of DTMF, and then they talk, and then you hear another quick burst of DTMF when they switch the speaker off and switch the microphone back on. So that is what the job of this DTMF decoder is that's to toggle it between sending and receiving, because it's half duplex. That way the operator can listen into the room, and they can then turn on the speaker so they can talk back, and then turn the speaker off so that you don't get feedback, because these are very loud. And if the microphone was live while they were talking, you'd end up with just feedback. So they actually control it so that it works more like a two-way radio, but the operator on the other end has full control of the unit itself. So that's the job of that chip there, is to control the sending and receiving of audio over the microphone and the speaker. Interesting. Here's an interesting IC here, a 4002-150SY. This is a digital record chip, record playback. It's a multiple message IC, can store 150 seconds of audio. Gotta wonder what this is for, right? This is going to be where the messages are stored. Phone line connected, system ready, placing emergency call. The messages that are spoken by the system are stored in this IC. So they actually have recordings. It's not a sound synthesizer. It's actually recorded messages. So all the messages, when we powered it up, when it talks, that's where that's coming from. It's coming from that IC there. Probably the music on hold too, because I noticed that the music on hold on all these machines, that actually could be coming from the monitoring company though. When it dials out, when we make our test calls, when it first dials in, we hear music for a few seconds before the agent comes online, the security people, and that probably actually is sent over the phone line, because it's the same music on this as it is on the new model, and for that matter, the wireless ones that work off cellular technology, it's the same tune, so it's probably sent over the phone line. But this is definitely what is being used to store the commands that this thing here spits out when it's booting up and when it's in test and when the battery is low, and all the messages that it has to send are stored on that chip right there. This one here, an LM1877, that's a stereo amplifier, 2 watts per channel. I would pretty much be guaranteed pretty much that it's going to be using it in a BTL output so that they can get 4 watts of audio, because this thing is loud. It's very loud. It's designed so that it can be heard throughout the house. Hence why they have to turn off the speaker or turn off the microphone when they're talking, so that they don't get feedback. Because I say this thing is loud. You can hear it probably out on the street. It's so loud. Anyway, that's the audio amplifier for it. I'm not going to bother looking at the IC number on this one. It's kind of small, but that's going to be the mic preamp, because you can see traces from the microphone here going into this. So this is going to be the microphone preamp. And that's, I think, about all we can look at on this thing. A couple little switches over here. That's to turn the battery on and off, so you don't have to remove the battery. That's good to know. Next time I get one of these to swap out, I'll just shut the battery off rather than pull the battery when I unplug it. Otherwise it starts talking and saying power lost and all kinds of stuff. And then unplug the phone line, it says phone line cut. Anyway, that's this little Alarmforce, the old, they call them a PER system, a personal emergency response system or reporting system, depending on how you want to call it. But looks like they've done a few mods to it with these bodge wires here. So they've done a few different things to it to make them work. Maybe they realized after they did it that there was, you know, a problem, or just because they didn't want to go to a multi-layer board. You know, it's a dual layer board, but there was no real estate on the back side to put the jumper in, so they just did it with wires and had the wires about, you know, 4 inches too long. Well, maybe not 4 inches, but definitely a little longer than they needed to be. But I'm sure these were probably not a real high volume unit, and they were probably doing a lot of this assembly part by hand. Maybe the surface mounted components might have been put on by a pick and place machine, but the through hole stuff, I'm sure that was all put on by hand. Anyway, that's about all I can show you on this thing. I can now put it back together. Oh, you know what? Let's take the pendant apart. Let's see what's inside here. So, in the back here, there's a battery. Not just any battery, but this is a big sucker. A CR2477. Look at the size of that sucker. You know that that's going to last a while. This thing's got some heft to it too, and it's dead. There's the pendant. See, that was another downside to these ones, is these old ones were not waterproof. The ones that we have today, the current ones that replace this, they're all completely waterproof, and you cannot change the battery on them. They're sealed. This one here is not. This one here had this little back that went on the back of it here, but there's no, you know, there's no gaskets or anything on here to seal it up. So if this one went in the bathtub or the shower, it's going to fill up with water and it's not going to work. Whereas the new ones that we've replaced these with are fully submersible and they're sealed. I don't know if this will pop apart or not. I'm not gonna pry into this thing because I'm turning this thing in. So, and the battery is dead, so there's no point in keeping the battery because the battery itself is shot. Hence why these things are getting swapped out. But if you look at the battery voltage on this, it is 2.8. So the battery itself is shot. And I guess probably why this thing got swapped out, because it was showing a fault. And since we no longer support these units when they have a fault, we swap them out and get them new stuff. Anyway, that's it. That's a look at this personal emergency responder. Throw this thing back together and send it back to recycling. A big thanks goes out to my Patreon supporters. You guys know who you are. I don't need to name you. I know some channels they feel that they just need to put everybody's name in there for Patreon support. I like to think that my subscribers probably want to remain anonymous. They don't need their screen names or their names plastered across the video. So I'm not naming you guys, but hey, we certainly appreciate all of the contributions we get from members, and I will continue to publish extra long videos and content just for my Patreon subscribers. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and check the bell if you want to be notified of my new videos as I publish them. As I say, we're going to be doing some video stuff. I've had a lot of requests for more VCR videos. So I'm going to dig out some of my other VCRs, beta machines and stuff, and we'll do a few more on beta machines and other formats. I've still got that reel-to-reel CV2000 system that one of these days I'll get around to hauling it out and we'll do a rebuild on that. I've been meaning to do that for about 5 years now, and I just keep I keep finding other things to do, and mainly because I really don't have a use for the thing other than it would be neat to see if I can get it to work a little better than it does now, because it was working sort of the last time I used it. It was playing a tape in black and white, an old recording of Jay Leno from the last time it made a recording. I don't know when that would have been, probably back in the 90s, or maybe, well, whenever Jay went on the air. But anyway, it was a while back. Anyway, I've got some more camcorder videos coming up. I've got some more high 8 videos coming up, more VHS, more beta, and whatever else I can get my hands on. This is video number 1500, in case you guys have lost count. Looking forward to the next 1500. Well, like 2015 was when this one was, so 4 years old is what this thing was. 4 years. It would probably still be in use too if the company hadn't got sold. Because I don't think that they would have changed out equipment. They would have just kept using the same crap that they were using over the years.
Power failure.
Yeah, her voice is kind of annoying, isn't it? We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now.